Hey guys, how's it going? Ghosty Rich here today, and today we're going to be installing the second half of the Supreme Suspensions lift. So, first thing that they get you to do is the body lift. We did that. If you want to see that video, go and watch it. Pretty easy to find. I'll even put a annotation right here if you're on a PC. So, first things first, make sure you have the right parts. They give you your beer cap opener to make sure you can open your beers. They give you some little pieces here. These are for Monroe shocks, which we will also be installing in this. So definitely keep these handy. Bolt kit, air freshener, because you have a stinky vehicle. And the next thing that you're gonna wanna do first is go around and loosen all the lugs. Don't take them off, just crack the tension off of all the lugs on your vehicle. So that way when we're lifting this, you can easily take your tires off when this is in the air. Next thing you need is a jack, a couple jack stands, and for us we have a couple blocks just in case, because we need those during the body lift, because you do have to lift quite high. And other than that, let's get this started. Once you've jacked up your vehicle, I put our jack stands on the 3rd notch, and we've lifted it really high with the frame, so that way we have lots of room. When you have the tires off, it's a good time to check your brakes. And since we're going to be doing some stuff with the shocks and the struts on this vehicle, make sure you check the shocks and strut. Next thing you're going to want to do is take a flat blade, go here, and push these out on both sides of the speed clip. If you look here, you literally have to just move this and then move that side. You'll see that this opening in the center opens up, and you just do that. Once you do that, push it towards the inner body of the vehicle and move it out. This is going to allow for travel. We want lots of travel for when we're putting in our coil spacer. Since I already did the body lift, I already took out the top one. If you haven't, it's the same clip. Before we get too crazy, if you look at the top of your strut right here, which is your shock, right there, we're gonna have to loosen the 3 bolts. This is just sitting here now with the whole knuckle. Next thing you're gonna wanna do is loosen these 2 bolts. Now these can be really rusty, so you might break these. As you can see, look at how messy those are. So we're gonna try and loosen those off without breaking them. Once you put a 3/4 on each side, it's 3/4 here, loosen off that bolt, go to the other side, loosen off this bolt this way. So they go opposite ways. Once you've loosened it out, as you can see, this is now free. That's a washer you wanna keep. Now this will go free. Next thing you need to do is the same size as you used to remove the 2 bolts on the bottom. We have to hold on to this and remove that center bolt. When you're removing these rivets, you put a socket underneath it. Make sure it's a good socket, and you literally just, yeah, like that. It's gonna be like that, only a lot more intense and heroic. Next thing we're gonna be removing is this end link right here. So you're gonna want a 15mm box wrench on the top and a 15mm ratchet on the bottom. Make sure that doesn't turn too hard, so you're gonna hold it even if you rest it up over here. Basically, you just want it to catch something to hold the box wrench, and then you're gonna loosen it from the bottom. The box wrench and impact, so get the 3 up here. I threw some liquid wrench on them to help break the rust, and we're gonna loosen it off. All right, so first off, we have some really big zap straps. If you don't have some of these, you could always use an old coat hanger or something. I just prefer zaps. Go from right here to right here. What's gonna happen is I'm gonna wiggle this knuckle out of the piece here, and we're gonna zap strap it so it's hanging off of here, so it's not using the control arm for anything. Once that's all up here like so, it's nice free from here, you're literally gonna push down on here and move the spring like that. Once the spring's out, now we can put in our spacer like so, and make sure it faces down so that way it's in the spring. Like that. So just slip it on, and we'll go from there. So even if it doesn't completely seat, once you put the weight of the vehicle on, it's gonna sink that spacer in. So after you've put the smaller of the 2 spacers on, you're just gonna take your pry bar like so, and we're gonna find a spot like on that arm back there, and we're gonna push this down. Let's see here, there we go.
Do it again. Turn it.
All right.
There.
All right, perfect. And now the fun part. Get to put the jack underneath here and compress it so you can slide that knuckle back in. So if you take a look here, what we ended up doing is it was getting too crazy. It's best to do this if you have a spring compressor. We do not have a spring compressor on site right now. So what we ended up doing is we loosened the shaft, 2 14s, 14 on the back end, 14 on the front, shoot some move it on it or liquid wrench, get those 3 bolts out, and then once those are out and free like so, we're gonna screw this in, and then as we jack it up, we'll put the CV shaft back on. And this is, we found to be the safer way if you don't have a spring compressor. When you tighten these 17s up, one thing is, just be very careful as you're tightening them up. We got our all done. Just make sure that spring washer is compressed and you get it nice and tight with one hand. So basically just go and don't hem at it, just get that nice and squeezed in so it's not loose. After you've gone through, made sure those are tight, let's jack this end up and we will start to line up the CV shaft again. After examining the other side, we noticed that the heads were at the front and then nuts are at the back. So we've just lightly threaded in our strut, so when we start jacking this up, if we can, we're gonna bolt it in. So taking a look at this, you can see that we put it flat underneath there so the bolts actually dig into the pad on the jack stand. Once that's dug onto there, now you can also see that our CV is gonna line up so we can put those bolts back in. And then, if you also look, we've got it so that lines up so we can bolt the strut in. So it all works out. Now, in our strut package, it doesn't come with a lock washer. Instead, it comes with a lock nut. So you'll see it's a nylock. Look right here. These screws were just not big enough, these holes that the rivets were in. So we had to ream them out just a tiny bit bigger so that way you can fit your bolt through. Look like that. You just put the bolt head down there, put this one here, and then you can tighten these up and just hold the bolt head with a box wrench. I'm not gonna tighten these up yet because we don't need to. What we can do first of all is we're just going to put the CV shaft back in. So when you put the CV back on, like 2 prop props on the rattle gun, but yeah, it's up to you guys. Again, just don't go crazy with them. They have a spring washer. Make sure that you attach that spring washer back on and put the bolts the same way you took them out. We decided we'd put this clip back in because it holds it so beautifully. And then this, we're gonna just bend out of the way so that way we don't have to worry about it ever catching the line if he's doing any sort of off-roading or anything, because the last thing you want is that to catch the line. You could also cut that off if you feel so inclined to. Put your sway bar back on, you might have to try and push it down. We just lightly put some pressure in between here with a pry bar. Don't want to bend your steering obviously, so lightly. And then once you push that down, screw on the 14 mil on the bottom and then hold it with the 15 and keep going. Don't go too crazy with this one, as this is, if you look at the shaft and the screw, it's not that big, or the bolt, and you will for sure crack it. That's it completely seated. Again, we still have the other side jacked up. But look at this. That is with the body lift.
So did you guys?
And that is with
Almost 3 feet.
almost. Wow. We're gonna have to take a look here and see what it looks like once it's fully sat, but it's such a big difference. Passenger side, you're gonna have a pry bar like so, and you're just gonna separate the CV, because this end, you don't actually have to use or loosen any bolts. It's just separate it. Once it, you hit that spring clip, it'll release, and then after it releases, you'll see it slide out a bit. Try and keep that area clean if you want. And then we're just gonna do our good old zap strap knuckle trick again and get this knuckle out of the way. Next thing you wanna do is just loosen these bad boys off the rest of the way, so that way you can take your tire off. Once your tire's off, go ahead and be able to see everything from behind. Look here, this right here is gonna be a 14. Slide it on, and then from there, you're just gonna loosen this bolt. After you loosen this bolt on the strut, we're gonna go down here, and we're gonna have to put one on each side of these. I believe it's a 16 or a 17, so I'll have to see, but you'll need a ratchet and a box wrench. So to get the old shock off, all I decided to do was clamp on a vice grip and then loosen this bolt off. After the top one's done, come here down to the bottom, and you're gonna attach right here. You're gonna go right here and right here with a 17 ratchet, 17 box wrench, loosen this off. After you loosen this off, strut should be free. All right, so at this point, just slide that bolt out. Bottom of the strut will pop out. The whole thing falls down. So if you're taking a look at this, take off these two. They look like they're about 10 mils or 12s. I'm gonna remove these, and that way this brake line is free for when we're putting in our spacer. So if you look back there was one clip that was binding up. It goes to that wiring harness right there. So I cut the clip so it's not over there anymore. if you look, you'll be able to do this back and forth on each side, which allows you to pull the spring out. So as you can see, he's up on this side, and if we go to the other side, because he's jacking it up, now we can get that spring in. So top first. Yeah. And then go up a little, keep going up a little bit more, Dylan. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Keep going.
And you'll see, it just keeps coming up like this. Now that both of them are in, let's put our struts back in, and then we're done. We're putting new struts in. When you're installing, make sure you use the new hardware when you're installing your new strut. After you've put the bottom part together, next thing you're gonna do is take this and one of your bushing. So take the bushing plate, put it on, put it like so, compress the shock, and then have it aimed like this, and do this on both sides. After you do this, now you can get, if you have a second person, whoop, one sec, there we go, jack it up, and just like that. And then you just get them to keep going. And if you have 3 people, this is really handy, because then you have someone over there. But from there, yep, just like that, like so. So it's like this. Put a little bit of Loctite on here, because these are not nylocks, so it's always good to throw a little something on there to keep them from coming out. Yeah, the bottom one you don't have to worry about. It has a spring washer. It's too bad they don't give you spring washers for the top. That would have been awesome. Take a look here. Put the brake parts back on. Now that the brake parts are back on and we're all good to go, this is the only one. It was already ripped. I'm guessing from someone driving. The other side was ripped too, so we just left them. Either way, that's done. Everything's tightened up here. Time to put our tires back on. Go ahead and tighten up these until the wheel starts to spin. Do that on all of them. When you're tightening them, if you don't know this, star pattern. So there you go. That's what 4 inches of lift looks like on it. Looks really, really good. That looks really nice. Like we said, the only thing that you'll have to deal with a little bit is the fact you are gonna have a bit of gap here, but that's from the body lift. That's what happens. And then up front you have something here. You can always stuff this with foam or something. I've seen people even stuff it with pool noodles, but that is up to you. If anything, it's gonna help keep some cooling going through the bottom end of it, but that is completely up to you and your design. I just want to show you what it looks like. That's the Supreme lift. Time to crack one. Enjoy the rest of your night. Just like if you liked it, subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching. Also, if you can, in 500 kilometers, once again, check all your bolts again. You never know, just in case one starts loosening off. If you start all of a sudden driving and you start feeling a waving or anything like that, that could be your tire coming loose if you didn't torque them down properly. Make sure it's at around 80 to 90 foot-pounds. Don't go too much more, because if you do, you'll never get them off if you have to get your spare on. So that's about it. Just a quick friendly reminder.